Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Modern Farming Podcast, brought to you by Green Gene Foundation, where we are cultivating agricultural excellence through education every day.
We're your hosts, Chris and Tara, and together we're growing in knowledge about the world that feeds us.
Exciting day today. We've got a teacher coming on, Mr. Bokelmann. He's a science and working on the ag program at Manatee High School over in Bradenton. And he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and his adventures there at the school. So welcome, Aaron. How are you?
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. It's pretty exciting. We're starting to get an ag program here at Manatee. And so just a little bit of a background about myself. I've been teaching for 24 years. I grew up on the east coast of Florida in Jupiter, Florida. I actually graduated from Jupiter High School. So I grew up around water, grew up around the ocean. As a kid, I grew up scuba diving and snorkeling and all that type of stuff. And currently at Manatee High School, I'm teaching marine science. So it kind of works out that my whole life has evolved around oceans and marine science and that type of stuff. I went to school at University of Central Florida, met my wife there, and she was from Bradenton and just happened to luck out to get a job here in Manatee County. And basically, I've been living here almost 30 years now. So I've been teaching for 24 years. The first 7 or 8 years, I worked in manufacturing. I worked for boating companies, and I made canvas and upholstery for boats. And I worked for a lawn and garden company called Key Mowers, which was actually Trailmate, and I worked in that agriculture department, kind of in that route, working with lawnmowers and things like that. So a little bit of a variety of a background that brought me into teaching. I always wanted to be a teacher. When I was in high school, I had a very good high school science teacher that we would go snorkeling with and go do all sorts of fun things with on the weekends. I was like, man, if I could ever help kids have that inspiration and teach me, or teach them what this teacher taught me, that would be great. And well, here I am. Now I'm a teacher.
You hear that so much. I mean, whether it's people that become teachers or people that just like working with children and education, that they're inspired, early in life by a really cool teacher. So really interesting to hear that and how you continue the tradition or the excellence of helping kids like that.
He was a great teacher. We loved snorkeling. He'd take us we'd go down to the Everglades and we'd go tromps through the swamps down there. And we had fish tanks in his classroom. And he was like, hey, let's go catch some fish this weekend. So me and a couple of my friends, we would go snorkeling and go catch some fish and set them up in the classroom. And it's kind of what I've been able to do now here at Manatee, as we go out and we collect fish for the students, and then they can maintain their fish tanks and have all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice to kind of do the same thing that I did in high school with these students now.
I've been in and saw your classroom, and it is wall-to-wall aquarium tanks.
They all now have water in them because we have axolotls, and our axolotls gave birth. And so we have about 350 something axolotls, and they all need special big tanks. So we have somewhere in the neighborhood, I think, of about 30 tanks of axolotls, and then about 20 tanks of fish, and then the tanks that you gave us with the snook, as well as another tank of tilapia as well, 100-gallon tank of tilapia. So every tank that I have has water and fish in it somewhere.
How did that go into the aquaculture? Just bringing those fish in from the bay, or are you going to the bay and catching them with the kids?
The aquaculture side, we've always been with the marine science, giving the kids the opportunity to maintain a fish tank, because a lot of these students they'll go to the beach or they'll go something like that, but they never really pay attention to what's out there. And so what we do is we set up fish tanks. The kids go out, they collect the water, and then they actually go out and dip net for 2 different times and catch stuff for their aquarium. So for about a month, they're kind of maintaining an ecosystem in the classroom. And the kids always love this, even kids that are, have no interest in anything. All of a sudden, magically, they're here every day. They want to take care of their fish. They want to see their fish. Somehow, Moat contacted me and said, hey, we're interested in, maybe doing some fish or something. Would you be interested? And then some people in our district got a hold of that and said, well, hey, we can buy you some 100-gallon hydroponic systems if you want. And next thing I know, I've got these systems showing up. They're 100 gallons on the bottom, and they got the clay balls up at the top. And then before you know it, I get boxes of these little fingerlings. And so last year we raised the tilapia, and then Moat came and showed us how to raise them, how to measure them, how to keep track of the food output and input and that type of stuff. And then you guys came along and said, well, that's not big enough. You need a better system. And so here we are now. I got a 500-gallon tank system with snook that are in there that we're hopefully going to release in about another month with Moat. They're going to come and we're going to tag them. We're going to release them. And then next year, we're hoping to harvest and raise about 300 tilapia or so.
And what do you grow in your classroom other than the fish?
In the garden side of the hydroponic part, our tilapia, we have tomatoes, lettuce, and basil. It's a very small little tank. It's only about 3.5, 4 foot long and about 2.5 foot wide. In the snook tank, we originally had a garden that we were going to do salsa stuff. So at the end of the year, the kids had harvested tomatoes and peppers and onions and make salsa. We had to switch it to saltwater. So now we're growing mangroves. Kids went out, collected mangrove propagules in the pots for about 2 weeks. So they still got a long ways to go. But by this time next year, the kids can plant them in the causeway or wherever. Once a month, my marine science students, they go out to our causeway, Palmasola Causeway, and we go out there and do labs. Some of the labs involve testing the water, for example, collecting the propagules. So the students collect the propagules from the mangroves, from the red mangroves, and then they could plant those. Just a variety of different things. We try and go at least once a month at the end of the year, which is coming up now. We'll actually go 2 or 3 times a month because they're going to maintain their fish tanks. We'll set up the fish tanks, they'll go get the water. Then the following week, they go out into the water and they physically collect the fish and bring them back. We'll do that 2 times, and then they'll release the fish after that. We're supposed to keep them about 30 days or so.
That's so awesome to get them out. That's huge for kids. That's huge for kids and yourself probably too. But.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's so many kids don't go out there and physically look at what's around. You know, they always are on their phones or they want to sit at their house or they'll go to the beach and chat with their friends. But this gives them the opportunity to do something science-y in class outside of the classroom, which is really nice.
Great.
So you mentioned earlier Guy Harvey. Tell us how that has helped you in your classroom.
We are what's considered a Guy Harvey conservation school. In order to be a Guy Harvey conservation school, you have to have 2 teachers at your school that have done some of the Guy Harvey trainings. So Guy Harvey Foundation or Education Foundation offers a variety of different teachings or trainings in different places all throughout the state. And I did one, I guess, in January over in Daytona Beach. They do them at Busch Gardens, at SeaWorld, different science centers, and they offer kind of a day training of doing some sort of learning. So, for example, one day, one of the trainings might be on shark tagging. So you kind of learn how they do shark tagging. It might be coral reefs, it might be lionfish. And once you have 2 teachers from your school go, then you can apply to become a conservation school. And in order to be a conservation school, the teachers must go on a regular basis. And then you have to do kind of like a service project. So what my students do on one of their trips is we go out to the causeway and we collect trash. And they have bags and go clean up the causeway. And they're really usually surprised. They're like, man, I can't believe there's this much trash. And it opens their eyes for that. But then that gives us the opportunity to do the Guy Harvey curriculum. Guy Harvey Foundation offers curriculum on their website for teachers. So not only do they offer a textbook through the Oceans First place, but they offer all sorts of PowerPoints and different labs and programs for teachers to do, both elementary school and high school teachers.
That sounds like an interesting program. Sounds like they've really put some effort behind it. So
Guy Harvey himself, which most people know from his shirts and his art, he's very much into conservation, obviously, but he's also into education. And his daughter is in charge of the foundation. And she really was like, what can we do to get marine science or the ocean into schools? And she figured, and Guy Harvey himself figured, the best way to do that is to provide resources for teachers to use in their classroom. And so it's free. They have donors that come and sponsors that provide all the stuff that they need for that. So it's a great opportunity for teachers to get free resources. And then, at the end of the year, they kind of celebrate. They had SeaWorld one year at Busch Gardens, and all these teachers get together and we kind of just celebrate what all the teachers are doing over the course of the year for the Guy Harvey program. And they're teachers from for all of the state. And then they usually have, depending on where the location is, on a Friday for high school students, it would be an activity. So if we go to Busch Gardens, we would get to experience kind of the behind the scenes of Busch Gardens. And then Saturday would be our training. And then for elementary schools, it'd be switched. So they'd be doing the training on Friday, then they do the experience on Saturday. We did it at the Brevard Zoo. So we got to walk around the Brevard Zoo. And they've done it at the Suncoast Nature Center or something like that. And they go kayaking and learn that one day and then the other. So it's really quite a bit. And then they usually have about 300 or 400 people at the summit, which is kind of the celebration. And it's usually sold out within just a couple of days. And it's free, but it fills up.
That's a wonderful resource.
It is.
You said you were becoming going from just marine science to an ag based curriculum. And I understand you're working on some certification.
We do stuff with our fair. They have a steer sale, and I was talking to somebody there who's in charge of the Farm Bureau for our area, and he was like, Manatee High School is the only high school that doesn't have an ag program in Manatee County. And I told him kind of what I'm doing, and he was like, well, raising fish and stuff like that is part of agriculture. So that kind of got my own wheels turning, and I was like, well, if that's the case, why aren't we an ag program? Why, if I'm doing all that stuff, why do we have to be just labeled Guy Harvey, or why do we just have to be labeled science? So I kind of filled out a little letter and a request to my principal saying, hey, I think we should consider maybe going this next step, because we're already doing some of this stuff. And we're the only school that doesn't do that right now. And as soon as I sent that to her, she's like, hey, let's talk. So we sat down and talked, and she's like, I didn't realize that either. But if that's what you're doing now, let's make it happen. And so I started looking into what I need to do to get certified, which is just take a state test. Started looking at what courses are available. And there is an agriculture program actually called Aquaculture available through the Florida Department of Education. And it's Aquaculture 2, 3, and 4, I believe is what they call it. And by the time they're in their third or fourth year, they would actually get an aquaculture certificate that would allow them to work directly in a place like a Moat or SeaWorld or any of these facilities, or work on a farm that specializes in that. They would have that certification, because we're just kind of starting to work on that. But part of the state standards is that in order for them to be able to get that certificate, they have to be able to run a business. So Aquaculture 2 or 3 has them learn business management, and then Aquaculture 3 has them actually harvesting and processing a product. So I'm in the process of getting our aquaculture certificate from the state of Florida so we can sell products. And we're going to we chose, working with University of Florida, we chose to do tilapia next year. So we're going to raise about 300 tilapia, be about 500 pounds. It's a 9-month fish, so we can get them at the end of August, and then by April they'll be 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds based upon how we regulate the food. And then the students will learn how to make money on it or lose money depending on how they do it. We're not doing it to make money, but it gives them the idea of how to run a business. They'll keep track of the food input or output, I should say, to the fish. They'll keep track of what we get back and kind of figure out how that whole business model works and everything like that. And then what we'll do in April of this time next year, hopefully our culinary department will work with them and we'll process the tilapia, maybe have a fish fry, or we'll vacuum seal and freeze the fish and sell it to the community, something like that. Nothing that's going to, make anybody retire or anything, but just gives the kids maybe a little money to have a little party at the end of the year. That's kind of my goal right now. Now, this time next year, it may be completely different. I may say, this is awesome. Let's do 1,000 pounds of fish. Or I may say, that was the dumbest idea ever. We're never doing that again. I don't want to smell fish anymore. I don't know. We're looking forward to seeing where it goes, but hopefully that kind of is where we're going, at least for the next year or two.
But congratulations. It's great to hear someone kind of taking the initiative, and good for you.
Yeah, well, talking to people in the community, and there is a huge need for aquaculture, but no one in Manatee County is teaching high school students how to grow fish. Yeah, we have ag programs, but when it comes to fish and stuff, which is mainly what we have here in Florida, how can we, get this to the kids, and how can we get the kids to understand how important this is and how great this is?
And that hands-on learning drives it home for them.
There are a lot of kids that probably aren't super interested in animals or fruits and vegetables, right? So that gives now you're exposing them to something, they may be really into fish, and not realize that that's farming. So that's great that there's another option for students to learn, other than the classical way of doing agriculture.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm never going to be able to reach every student. I would love to do that, but the reality is, you're going to get kids that aren't interested. But if we can offer something that's different than anybody else, which we are, there's going to be a couple kids that are going to be like, wow, this is pretty great. And the kids walk into the lab room all the time and go, wow, I didn't even know we had this. And they've been to school here for 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, yeah. And if you don't know, then people out in the community don't know as well. So what can we do to get them to know, hey, we're raising fish. Hey, this is a viable resource. This is something that you can do. I am not a farmer. I kill tomatoes in an earth box. I don't know how you do that, but I do it. But yeah, here I am. We're raising fish, and our fish aren't dying. They're growing. So for some reason, I don't know if you call it a blue thumb or a green thumb or whatever it is, but we're lucking out with what we're doing so far.
I want to know more about your paleontology, and do you bring that into the classroom, which I know you have a large skull of some sort in your classroom. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that part of it.
Well, besides growing up in the ocean, I always grew up loving to dig fossils. And of course, near Bradenton, we have the Peace River, which has tons of shark's teeth and stuff like that. And as a kid, we used to always come over to Peace River and dig for shark's teeth. And about 10, 12 years ago, there's a foundation called the Toomey Foundation that works with the Bishop Museum, and they offered a program for teachers to go out to the Badlands of Nebraska and dig out fossils. And I was like, oh, I got to do this. And life happens, and I never got to do it. And I finally one year went, and I was like, this is it. I could do this every day of my life for the rest of my life. Opportunity came to go out again, and then another time. And then eventually it got to where I was able to go out and kind of be the liaison between the foundation and our school district. And because I'm in the schools, I could get the word out and be like, okay, hey, we offer this. So for the past, about 10 years or so, I've been able to go out to Nebraska. We kind of alternate years. And one year we were taking students out. So we take middle school students out to Nebraska with a parent. They go out there. We stay at a ranch that's out in what's called Crawford, Nebraska, population of about 800, very small town. And it's got a little fingerling of the Badlands out there. And we go out there and teach students how to dig up fossils. And they walk around and they find fossils. And then once we dig them up and process them like a paleontologist does, which put the plaster on it and take it out of the ground, then we send it off to get prepped, and the students get to keep what they find. So about 6 months, 8 months, a year or so later, once it's all prepped, the students get it back, and we'd have what we call Fossil Christmas, and the students get to open their box and find out what it was they got. They started off with the teachers, which is what I did. So we do teachers as well. So teachers from Manatee and Sarasota County would sign up for this, and they would go out there and fly out there, and we pick them up and take them out in the field for a week and show them everything that's out there in the Badlands. And it's been a dream of mine. I love fossiling. I love paleontology. And we're in a time period that we dig. It's called the Oligocene. So it's about 20 to 30 million years ago. So mammals are present. So we find a handful of different types of mammals. Saber cats are out there, little things called oreodonts, which are like sheep. They're about the size of maybe a Labrador dog, small little animal. And then we also find lots of little turtles and large turtles, tortoises as well. In my classroom, I've got a skull of something called a Titanothere, which is about the size of an ancient rhinoceros. So the skull's probably about, I don't know, about 2 feet or so in size. It's been a blessing. We go out there. Most of the stuff that I find, or some of the leaders find, goes to museums or goes to universities for research, places like that, or whatever. But it's been a great opportunity that I get to put the love of teaching, which I have, plus the love of paleontology, which I have, and put the two together.
It's a long way to go to get to Nebraska, but I would imagine when you take students, they're tripping over themselves to try and get their parents and get them out there.
Not only are the kids fighting, but the parents, because you can only bring one parent. So it's like, which one is the kid's favorite parent that gets to go? And we've had a couple times where 2 kids of the same family go, and then the other parent will get to go, something like that. But it's just a wonderful opportunity that the Toomey Foundation provides, and they pay for everything but their flight out there. So they're all the prepping of the fossils, the food, the hotel, the room, all that type of stuff is taken care of. So it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you have fun? Plus you could get some really great fossils for in the kids' case for your room, or in the teacher's case for your classroom. You fly into Rapid City, so you get to see, some of the sites around Rapid City, like Mount Rushmore and places like that. We take them to Hot Springs, where the mammoth site is, where mammoths fell into a pit and got fossilized. And then, of course, we're out in the field pretty much 2-3 times a day. We go out in the morning, and then sometimes in the afternoon. It depends. In the summertime, it gets about 100, 110 out there in the Badlands. But then in the evenings, it's 70, 80 degrees. So we're there pretty much all day fossiling, and I can't say enough about it.
That's an awesome program. And I know with that big fossil in the middle of your classroom that everybody can look at, I'm sure you have a lot of interest in that also.
And it's great to hear, right? I just love these conversations with you guys. Awesome.
Well, thanks. There's so many teachers out there doing so many wonderful things. And unfortunately, in the news, you only see the bad things. And I'm not here for, the publicity. We don't do it for any of that. We just do it because we want the kids to learn and want the kids to have fun. I could not sit in a classroom and listen to somebody lecture day in and day out. And some of these teachers, that's just the way they do it. And the kids come to my class, and you can tell that's all they've been listening to all day. And I hope that when they come into my class, there are days where you have to go through notes and you have to do that. But then there are also the other days where let's have fun. Let's go learn something. Let's go do something, because most students nowadays, they watch a 20-second TikTok or they watch something like that. That's what catches their attention, not a 45-minute lecture on, the Constitution or whatever, although that's important. So I'm glad I can provide something for them to hands-on and hopefully learn a little bit better out. We went down and visited the aquaponics lab down at Riverview High School. And it was my principal and myself and our district coordinator. And they had a bunch of axolotls. And my principal's like, these would be great. Wouldn't you love these? And I'm like, no, I don't want any of these. I don't want any more work. I don't want anything else. Well, needless to say, 2 weeks later, I was driving down there to pick up some axolotls. And they also call them a Mexican salamander. They are popular among all the kids. If you ask little elementary school kids, they love them because they do have the little gills on the outside, and they live in the water. They're a type of fish. They have arms and legs just like that, and they have a tail. Kids all love them. Right before Christmas break, I changed the water, and I guess when you change the water temperature and make it a little bit warmer, love gets in the air, and next thing you know, I got eggs everywhere. My tank is currently kept at 64 degrees. I have them in a refrigerated tank. And I guess the water temperature got above 70. And next thing you know, I came in on the Sunday after Christmas break to feed everything, and there were eggs everywhere. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I sent Katrin a message. What am I supposed to do? She's like, well, you can hatch them if you want. I'm like, well, okay, I can't let these eggs die. So I counted them out, and it was over 200 eggs. They all hatched. Very few of them didn't hatch. They were in a 10-gallon tank. And they're really small. They look like tadpoles when they're first born. No legs, basically just a tail and some eyes and a little mouth. And they have to feed live food, so you have to feed them live brine shrimp all the time. So I had brine shrimp tanks going all the time. And eventually, they started growing, and so you have to separate them. Well, if you don't separate them, they start eating each other because they're cannibalistic at that age. So that's how I now have 30-something, 40-something tanks of axolotls. And then we took one of them because our science department was showing something at our district STEM fair at the Civic Center, which meant that they wanted to see one of these guys. So we took one out. Well, it just happened, instead of taking one of the guys, we took one of the ladies. Warm water. Next thing you know, the next day I come back, I got eggs everywhere again. So learned real quickly that I don't change the water temperature if at all possible, because now I have probably close to 400 of these guys. The kids love them. People all over the community are like, oh, I hear you got axolotls. I don't know how people know, but they know. And they are cute. They're nice. But when you got close to 400 of them, they're not as cute as the 5 that I had that we started with. So yeah. I blame Katrin and I blame my principal on all this problem that I have.
That's funny.
Are they multiple colored ones? Or are they the pink colored ones?
So the ones that we started with, we had 3 orange ones and 2 brown ones. One of the brown ones had I think it's called a jellyfish gene or whatever, but it glows in a black light. So when you shine a black light on it, it gets a bright green. The babies that we have some of them glow with the black light, some of them are orange, some of them appear to be more of the pink colors that you often see, and then we have the brown ones. So we have some that are orange with black eyes, some that are orange with red eyes, some that are pink, some that are black. So we have probably 4 or 5 different varieties of them.
Do you want to say any final words to the listeners out there? Anything you want to leave them with?
I mean, I really appreciate the Green Gene Foundation for what they've done for my classroom, for giving us the tanks to grow the snook in, for giving us the resources and the support, learning all sorts of things about agriculture and stuff like that. Moat has been great. I mean, the community has been so supportive and so wonderful. And it's been amazing for these kids to experience that. I'm just so thankful for you guys and for everybody that's gotten me where I am right now.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been blessed to be in a really good situation there. So that's about all the time we have for this episode.
Thanks for listening to Modern Farming, and be sure to follow us, share, and join us again as we grow knowledge about the world that feeds us.